Hello and welcome, I'm Sai, and today we have a request. A few months ago, I posted a video of a mini cover of Misery Business on the ukulele, and that's what we're going to do today. We'll start with the chords, and then we'll go over the strumming and the song structure the way that I did it in the video. Chord diagrams have vertical lines. There's 4 of them for the ukulele, and each line corresponds to one of our strings. The tuning for this ukulele is G, C, E, A. I like to say, good cats eat apples. And the horizontal lines correspond to these metal bars or the frets. The horizontal lines also split up the fingerboard into little rectangles. So this is the first fret, and I'm going to call this the first rectangle. This is the second fret, and I'm going to call this the second rectangle, and so on. And then we have a thicker line at the top of the diagram, and that is for the nut over here, which is this chunky, plasticky bit. The diagrams are drawn as if the ukulele is positioned this way, but we typically hold it this way, so if it's necessary to turn the diagram to match the ukulele, that's fine. So let's start learning our chords. This song has 4 chords in alphabetical order. They're C, D, E minor, and G. So the diagram for the C chord has 1 dot, so that shows us that one finger is going to be used in one place. And it is on the A string, good cats eat apples, and it is by the 3rd line on the 3rd rectangle, so we can say that it's by the 3rd fret. It doesn't specify which finger, so I'll use my first finger. Our finger numbers are 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm being careful to make sure that I'm using the tip of my finger to touch the string, or that my fingernail is facing generally upward. For this chord, it wouldn't make a difference if I changed my finger position, but for some other chords it will. I'm also making sure that I'm pressing hard enough, because if I'm not, I'll get that muting sound. Here's an example of what could possibly happen if my finger is in the wrong position. So now instead of using my fingertip, I'm using the front of my finger, or the fleshy part. So I actually ended up muting another string, the E string, which my finger wasn't even supposed to be touching. All right, let's look at our next chord, and that is the D chord. And in the diagram, it actually has finger numbers as well. So finger number 1 on the G by the 2nd fret. Finger number 2 on the C, also by the 2nd fret. Finger number 3 on the E, also by the 2nd fret. If ever it's confusing whether the diagram is having all of the fingers on the same string but different fret, or the same fret but different strings, generally when you're starting out on ukulele especially, there will never be 2 fingers on the same string. So if you see multiple fingers in a row, they're probably multiple fingers on the same fret. All right? So we're going to slowly test to make sure that we're not accidentally muting any strings, and that is our D chord. Also notice how I sort of pivoted my wrist outward a bit in order to get all my fingers lined up, because if I try to do this, it may be tricky to squeeze all of my fingers in this little rectangle here. So we're allowed to pivot outward as long as, so my hand is right here, the rest of my hand, it's not touching the strings, it's not muting or interfering with the strings. All right, our next chord is the E minor, and that is the staircase chord, and that's because our fingers make a little, oops, I slipped, make a little staircase. So finger number 1 goes on the A string by the 2nd fret, so in the 2nd rectangle. Finger number 2 goes on the E string by the 3rd fret, and finger number 3 goes on the C string by the 4th fret. So we've got our little staircase. We'll test each note, each string, and nothing's muted, so we're in good shape. And our last chord is a G chord. Finger number 1 is C string 2nd fret, finger number 2 is A string 2nd fret, and then finger number 3 is by the 3rd fret, and it's the E string. And let's check. And there's no muting, so we can play that chord. All right, let's take a little section of the song, and we'll play it without the strumming pattern, just straight down strums. We're going to play through the chords for the amount of beats that they actually last in the song, and we are going to go in order. So here's the order. We're going E minor, 2, 3, 4, B, 2, 3, 4, E minor, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4. And that is a part of the introduction of the song before the singing happens, where the guitar solo is happening. Remember that pausing or slowing down the video is totally possible on YouTube when playing along. Okay, let's take another pattern from the song that uses the G chord, because in our last pattern we didn't use the G chord. So we'll do the chorus, and here are the chords with lines underneath. So the lines correspond to how many times we down strum. We've got C, 2, 3, 4, B, 2, 3, 4, B, 2, 3, 4, E minor twice, D twice. Good. And another thing to notice is that if you need to look at your hand, so I've been looking at my hand, I'm not tilting the ukulele like this. That's going to change how our hands are positioned. I'm looking more down with my face. So there's this, and then, and then there's this. That's all the chords that we need for this mini cover. So now we'll put them together with the strumming pattern. After we go over the strumming pattern, I'll put all the chords on the screen. The strumming pattern is going to imitate the way that the music actually sounds. So if we listen to the song, I'm just going to sing the guitar part. It goes something like, right? So that's what the strumming pattern is trying to imitate, with accents on the down strums and also some muting. I'm not being super careful with how I'm muting. I'm just smacking the strings. There are more precise ways to do it, but this is fine for me. So we're going to go really slowly, down, up, mute, up, down, up, mute, up. And I'm just holding the E minor for now. And I'm muting with open hand sometimes, with closed hand sometimes. It's just a comfort level. It needs to be, in my opinion, and it needs to be kind of in a close general hand position to the chords coming before or becoming after. So we're not doing things like this, you know, big drastic changes. So let's do that again. Down, up, mute, up, down, up, mute, up, down, mute, up, down, mute, up. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and sometimes we can omit the up. So down, up, mute, down, up, mute, down, up, mute, down, up, mute. Let's look at that introduction part again, but we're going to add in the new strumming pattern. So this down, up, mute, up, down, up, mute, up, when we do it that many times, twice, that equals 4 counts, or 4 of those underlines on the screen. Typically, I replace that second up strum after the second mute with a switch. So down, up, mute, switch. Down, up, mute, switch. Down, up, mute, switch. Down, up, mute, switch. Okay, so the E minor D, E minor C pattern that we just practiced is for the introduction of the song, which is before the singing, and for the entire verse. So I'm in the business of misery. Let's take it from the top all the way up to biggest smile. And then there's a little section that I'm going to call the pre-chorus, and it's 4 E minors, nice and evenly spread out, but I strum them with a little bit more of an accent. And then it goes to 4 Ds, but they're not evenly spread out anymore, so they're a little bit smushed. Or I should say a little bit uneven. So even, 1, 2, 3, 4. And instead of subdividing those beats and counting it out, we're just going to listen to the sound, listen to the rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4. Da-na-na-na. Okay, and again, so it's 4 of each, but that D, they're uneven. They're smooshed together a bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, D, 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 D. And that's our pre-chorus. All right, now the chorus, we're actually going to do a full strum. So there's no muting like in the verse, and it's not just straight down strums like the pre-chorus-y section. So we've seen the chorus chords before when we were practicing a pattern with the G chord. So our strumming pattern is going to be down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 4 and 1, 2 and 4 and... Okay, but we're not going to just be playing the G the whole time. So let's do each chord for the right amount of times. So our 4 counts, the one strumming pattern that we just did, that corresponds to 4 beats or 4 lines under the chord. So we're going to go 1, 2, and 4 and 1, 2, and 4 and 1, 2, and 4 and now we're just going to strum once for each of these chords. So let's put that all together. 1, 2, and 4 and 1, 2, and 4 and 1, 2, and 4 and 1. 1, 1, 2, and 4 and 1, 2, and 4 and 1, 2, and 4 and 1, 1. Okay, so we're going to learn the end of the chorus, which is the God, it just feels so good. Okay, so we're going to do a modified C. So instead of putting the dot by the 3rd fret, we're going to put the dot by the 5th fret, and we're going to do straight down strums, and again with more of an accent, more flair. And then we move to a C chord, the one that we're familiar with. And then we move to the D chord. And then we do our quick E minor and D, one of each. So it will go like this. Why does it feel so good? 'Cause I got him where I want him now. Again. And if you could, then you know you would. But this time, instead of doing that quick E minor and D, we just do a 5th D, and we let the ukulele ring out a bit while we sing. So it would be. And if you could, then you know you would. 2, 3, 4, 5. Na, 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 na. And then we go back into our introduction. It just feels so good. I like to end it similar to the original recording of the song, where the last chord is that really forceful chord. So we're doing a C chord, and we're just going to do that da 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 rhythm that we did right before the chorus. So that'll sound like this. If you could, then you know you would, 'cause that it just feels so. So just do the intro again. It just feels so good. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. The original video will be linked in the description so that you can play along at any speed. The chords will be there as well, in addition to a link to a channel that I really like that talks about ukulele technique much more than we did today. Lastly, due to the length of this video, I didn't get to go over everything that I would have wanted to if I was talking to a beginner ukulele player face to face. So if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. Other than that, thanks for watching. Bye!